Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about the Virtuals protocol because obviously we've seen a really strong pullback in price recently. So I want to talk a little bit about, is this potentially a good time to get it back in? Are we seeing a bottom? Have we already seen a bottom? Should we wait a little bit longer? What do we do, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about that. We're going to be taking a look at what the chart is saying and then trying to draw our best conclusion from that. So anyway, let's go ahead, dive right in. Starting out, what we can see with the market is we are seeing a pretty nice bounce on the day. So I would say that there's a little bit of positive sentiment going on within the market overall today. So things looking good kind of from that perspective. We can see though still negative on the week. So we do need to be careful in just kind of some of the moves that we are making. Obviously we are seeing some greens here and there, but overall the market is down. We can see Virtuals here down 23.5% on the week. So, obviously not a particularly great showing, but we are going to be talking a little bit more about that today to see kind of what this could mean. Is this good buying opportunity? Should we continue to sit on the sidelines? What should we do here? So moving on, let's take a look at the crypto fear and greed index. We can see still sitting in greed. This to me is a little bit surprising just because of all the pessimistic takes that we've been seeing on crypto Twitter recently. We'll see if that changes. But overall, I think it's fairly fair to say, right? Prices are still really high. Obviously, some alts have been knocked down pretty hard, but Bitcoin's still holding up really well. A lot of some of the larger alts holding up pretty well as well. XRP kind of being the main one that comes to mind, but Cardano also doing fairly well also. Solana doing very fantastic. So there's a couple here and there. So I think this is kind of justified. I do wonder if we will pull back into neutral though at some point soon, just because there does seem to be a level of fear / pessimism within the market. So anyway, let's move on and let's head on into the Virtuals protocol. So this is the actual Virtuals app itself. And what we can see is they obviously have a whole bunch of different apps built within the Virtuals protocol. Massive selection here. One that I'm actually looking very closely into is Game right now. The market cap's only 73 million. It's come back, I think, close to 60% from its highs, I want to say, maybe even a little bit more than that. This is one that's really kind of catching my eye, so I might be pulling the trigger on this one soon. This to me seems like a little bit more of a picks and shovels type of play. If you don't know what that means, just stick around in the video. We're going to be talking about games specifically a little bit further on into the video, so this is one that's kind of catching my eye. Before we do that though, I did want to take a quick look at the chart. I am using TradingView just because it has a little bit more kind of like history here on the Virtuals chart. I do still use BTCC for a lot of like my charting and tracking of Virtuals, but since it was added recently, we don't get to see some of this like previous movement. So I want to take a little bit of a quick look here. What we can see obviously is several different things that I have charted out here. We've got a couple major supports to the downside that I've kind of identified. We can see if we kind of fall out of this liquidity zone that we are seeing kind of between like the 175-ish to like the $2-ish range. We can see, in the past, pretty strong level of liquidity here served as a really major level of resistance to the upside, and now hopefully it'll serve as a pretty major level of support on kind of as we're moving to the downside. We will see, obviously kind of remains to be seen there, but if we do fall through that, I would say this is probably the next level of support that we see, kind of like the $1.35 range. And then after that, if we kind of fall through and break that, it's probably likely we make it back down to like the 61-cent range. So obviously pretty far to fall from here if that were to happen. I realistically don't think this is going to happen. Obviously not financial advice. I could be wrong. It could happen, but I realistically just that seems a little bit out of reach. I do think that this $1.35 is possible. Not likely, but I do think possible. Now, the reason I think we found a bottom here is for a couple of different reasons. So one, again, I'm using the fib extensions to kind of assume that this is the bottom. We have not seen a bottom yet, but just this is what I'm using to assume. So we'll just kind of check this here in a second, but I did want to kind of take a look at what we're seeing here down on the bottom side. So what we can see is a couple of different things. First off, we can see we've spent a couple wicks here coming outside the bottom of the Bollinger Bands. The Bollinger Bands still are moving to the downside, so it is possible that we continue to move to the downside entirely within the realm of reason. What we can see though is on the RSI, we've got this like trailing like moving average RSI. We have been below that. We have started to see potentially a pick back up. Maybe we can kind of cross this. This would be a good this would be a good signal if we are kind of crossing above this level of RSI. And what we can see also is like we need to kind of take a look at where we're at this bottom versus like this bottom. Let's say if we look at this bottom, we can see a couple of different things. Obviously we fell below like kind of the average for RSI, but still sitting in like maybe weak, but probably even like the lower range of neutral. And then, but if we look at kind of like the moving average of the RSI, we could see still way up and strong. Probably not overbought, but it's in strong at this point. And now we're at a much more like reasonable level, I would say, in terms of a possible move to the upside. We can see right here, we almost actually went in and hit oversold here. We didn't, but then also the moving average is much lower as well, below kind of the like midpoint. So I do think it's possible that maybe this could be the bottom. Again, I don't know for sure, just because, anything can happen in the market, right? I cannot stress that enough. Anything can happen. I don't know just as much as you guys don't, but I think what we can see is with the level of somewhat overextension here, kind of on the Bollinger Bands, we are seeing this like high level of liquidity zone that previously served as a pretty strong level of resistance. We're hoping that it will serve as a pretty strong level of support. We're sitting right on in it. And so again, assuming that we found a bottom here. If not, probably how I would play this, probably similar to some of the other things I'm looking at right now. Maybe we take like a super, super low leverage long trade. Again, if you are a bull, if you're a bear, you probably just short it and there's not much to it. But if you are a bull, you probably take a super, super low leverage long trade, at least enough to kind of keep you protected from this one. Maybe even protected from this one. Again, like I said, I don't think that's in play, but again, anything can happen. So, maybe take a super low leverage long here. And then from that, we're looking at potentially doing like, hopefully it goes up, right? But maybe it continues to go down, and then maybe we DCA in again here. That would be kind of the play there, or the strategy, if you think that there is that possibility. If you think this is the bottom, obviously, you can make your own decisions on how you want to handle that. And then on moving to the upside, we can see a couple of different things. We can see the fib levels we can see are being somewhat useful, but not like totally instructive, right? So like obviously this 236, a pretty instructive level, I would say. We can see obviously some wicks falling below here, but this is a decent-ish level of support as an indicator. If we look at like 382, I believe this is, 382, not really super helpful. I mean, we did see a rejection wick here, and we did kind of see a little bit of some fighting in this range, but I would say not super instructive. This one not particularly instructive, at least on the daily. Maybe on the hourly, these are a little bit better. 618 I would say is decent because we did see this bounce. Obviously, we saw some wicks come right above it, but we did see this bounce ultimately kind of get rejected by this wick. And then 786, I mean, again, not super instructive. We do see some wicks here and there. And then obviously one is that's the all-time high that we've seen, at least thus far. And then if we start to look at extensions, we can see, things looking pretty interesting from here. $7.40 being the 1618, almost $11 being the 2618, and then, $14.35 being 3618, and then topping out here at 1650. So all potential targets if we are to come back and run past this and potentially enter into new price discovery, that is ultimately probably what we'd be looking at. So virtuals is on BTCC, so if you are looking to trade virtuals, definitely a possibility there if that's something you're interested in. Also, they've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, basically probably anything you'd be wanting to trade, they probably have. They also are offering that 10% bonus on first-time deposits, so a really, really nice deal there. Also, extra bonuses up to $10,055 per user, so a lot of different options there. They're willing to throw a whole bunch of money at you to get you to trade there, which is really cool. Also, no VPN or KYC necessary, so if that's something that's important to you, then they've got that as well. So like I said, just check the link in the description below if you are interested. Now moving on, I had a couple of posts on X just so that I want to kind of go over and show you one, why I think game is a potentially really game-changing, pun not totally intended, potential proposition within the AI space. And then also we're going to see something from Virtuals Protocol itself. They're also talking about game, but I also want to kind of help understand like what is virtuals and then what is game, because they're both kind of, I would say, somewhat intertwined at a certain level. And so I think they do a decent job of kind of pulling those apart. So first off, we can see, I don't think, like he says, I don't think there's any reason to doubt the potential of AI and AI agents. I don't think any of us do, which is why we've seen AI run so hard. he's basically adding game because he thinks it's like it's a modular low-code framework that simplifies the process for building and deploying autonomous agents. Completely agree here. And then essentially they can make decisions, plan actions, interact across various platforms like social media, video games, and other applications. Key updates. He goes over key updates. I won't go over this whole thing here just because it's a little bit more of a lengthy post, but I have reposted it. So I do have that link to my X account in the description below as well, if you do want to like read into this a little bit more and try and understand what's going on. This to me, so this is like the picks and shovels types of application here on the Virtuals ecosystem, because if you want to build something on the Virtuals protocol, if we look, we can see try game. So you obviously can create your own AI agent using whatever sort of complex, methods that you want to use. Totally fine. You can launch that on Virtuals, not a problem at all. However, if you're somebody that's not maybe super technically inclined when it comes to AI, but maybe you have a really interesting idea for an AI agent that you would like to make, they do have this game protocol that essentially helps like low to no code, building out an AI agent that can help you do whatever you want it to do and essentially enact on whatever your idea is. So this to me is why I call it like a picks and shovels types of play. Picks and shovels ultimately meaning like this is the thing that kind of does all the other things that people don't necessarily like consciously focus on, right? So picks and shovels coming back from like the gold rush, right? Obviously, when you're going into the gold rush, there's kind of a common saying that you don't necessarily want to be the one hunting for gold. You want to be the one selling the picks and shovels to the people who are hunting for the gold, because obviously hunting for gold itself can be a risky business, very high risk, very high reward. But if you're the one selling the picks and shovels, it's almost a guaranteed business, right? And so that's kind of where the picks and shovels plays come from, if you've heard that before. But this is why I think game could be a picks and shovels type of play, because they're essentially the framework that allows potentially all of these people to build a whole bunch of different AI agents super fast, super easy. You don't have to, be somebody that knows, AI and ML modeling and training and all that type of stuff. You don't need to know any of that. You just have to know how to interact with their low to no code system. I think that's a pretty strong proposition if the Virtuals protocol continues to show some strength and some like mind share and market share, all that type of stuff within the crypto market. I think game could be a massive, massive winner. So that's what I'm looking very, very closely and very intently at, just because I do think that it could be a pretty compelling play. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about. As we can see here, we also have Virtuals talking about kind of what they're looking to do overall here. They're essentially like, it's very important to them that they want their builders to build with any agent framework that they want. So they're not going to force you into a particular like way of building things, which I think is fantastic, because if you want to build an AI agent, you should be able to build an AI agent the way you want to. And the Virtuals protocol should be able to facilitate that, which I think is really great. Also, I think like this is a smart and a prudent move from Virtuals, because obviously a lot of people are building their Virtuals using the game system, which again, we'll get to this here in a second. But this is a level of diversification, right? Because if more people start building with different agent frameworks, then that kind of, if game for whatever reason does not end up working out, that's okay, because there's a whole bunch of different, agent frameworks that are being used. So I think that's really, really a good thing that the Virtuals protocol is doing. And this goes into explaining kind of what the difference is, right? And so we can see here, Virtuals protocol themselves explains this as game Virtuals will continue on its vision to be the Shopify for Virtuals by providing a managed service for anyone to easily spin up autonomous agents. The on-chain agent economy is real. So I think this makes sense, right? What we're looking at here is like Shopify versus, Google perhaps, right? So the Virtuals protocol is effectively aiming to be like the Google for AI agents in a sense, right? It's kind of the base platform or the base level, the foundational level that you build on. Now, Shopify sits on Google, and Shopify makes it very easy for people to build their website super easy, and that's what game is, right? That's not to say that you have to, like, there's no requirement that you use Shopify to build your website on the internet, right? I mean, you could, if you want to go and like just code your actual website, you can do that, and that's totally cool. If you want to use a different option, and instead of Shopify, you use, whatever ones they're using these days, Squarespace. that's another option that you can do, right? All of these things are doable, and that's what essentially makes it easy to work within the internet, right? And so I think this is kind of what the Virtuals protocol is going for. I think it's a great move. I think overall this is kind of what makes sense overall in my mind. But also, like I said, Game is the first mover on Virtuals. It's backed by the Virtuals team. I think they've got a really great shot at it being kind of that picks and shovels play that is building and making things really, really easy for just people to spin up their own AI agents. I mean, think about if AI agents become more useful. I think right now we have some limitations to what AI agents can do. A lot of what we're seeing right now is basically them just having their own Twitter accounts and tweeting about whatever they want to tweet about, which is fine, and I think that's novel, but it's not particularly helpful, right? And so I think that's kind of what we're going to be seeing here is potentially a lot of like new things that come out. And if they're like the usefulness of AI agents increases, then there's going to be a lot more uses and reasons to use AI, right? Everybody might want their own AI agent because it's just that useful. Hard to say for sure, but if there is a world in which that happens, we could see millions, hundreds of millions, billions, maybe even trillions of AI agents spun up. And if even just a very, very tiny portion of those is built on Game, that could be very, very compelling. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm looking at, kind of how I'm thinking about the Virtuals protocol. Overall, it's still a very exciting project to me, even though we are seeing price down. This is actually encouraging to me because it's a better entry point or DCA point, depending on if you're already in or not. Really, really good place to potentially be starting your research rather than buying up at $5 or $4 or however many dollars when it's been up only, right? So, and if you did, I would say not a big deal. Not the end of the world. I do think we will probably see things come back. Again, that's my opinion, not financial advice. I have no idea if it will for sure or not, but just given what I'm seeing from the project overall, I'm pretty confident in that. Again, we'll have to see for sure. But overall, hopefully this information was helpful and was useful, breaking down a little bit of kind of what's going on from a technical analysis perspective, from a fundamental analysis perspective, a lot of that type of stuff. So like I said, if it was, please do give me a like and a subscribe because it really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, things like that, just drop those in the comment section. I do really enjoy all of the comments that you guys leave. You leave so many insightful comments that I really do enjoy reading and responding to. And a lot of you leave some really interesting and good information as well. So I do very much appreciate that. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.